for someone listening to this, going right to your manager and pitching an idea, and I'm saying, go spend the money, prototype it. Was it that fast? First shot, you said, I've got an idea. Did you have some crude drawings you had drawn up, or did you say, let's make an ice cream taco? And he's like, get your ass to Wisconsin. That's brilliant. Like, how did this actually, how long did it take for you to get him to do this?
It actually was pretty much like the latter. I mean, basically, I
Wow.
pitched him on it. I was probably on a plane to Green Bay the following week. We tipped them off while I was coming, and they had a couple of their guys from the manufacturing facility go to the cone plant, take some sugar cones off before they were twisted into a cone while they were still hot, and shaped them into taco shells, and brought them over to show me, and we were off to the races.
You're listening to Let Me Speak to a Manager with Frank Cava and Ian Matthews.
What a crock of shit.
Yeah, that was hot mic, Sam.
You can't say God on the air.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
Frankie!
Ian, you son of a bitch!
Frankie, we've got a big guest on today. As loyal listeners of our show know, Frank and I enjoy eating among many of our favorite hobbies, but that would probably be our number one. And we have the inventor of the Choco Taco, which is an all-time favorite snack of mine. Alan Drazen is here today. Alan, what's going on, man?
Everything's great, guys. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Ian. How's everything going?
We're good, man. We're good. We have Alan on here today because big news broke the internet at the end of July. The beloved Choco Taco of 40 years of fame in the country. Klondike came out and said that they were discontinuing the product, and it literally broke the internet. It was a number one trending topic on Twitter. If you look at Google, it broke. It went to 100 out of 100 on Google Trends. And I reached out to Frank and said, holy, this is big news. I can't believe it's happening, man. Do you like Choco Tacos like I do? And in typical Frank fashion, he had a perfect story about Choco Tacos.
So, Alan, I buy distressed real estate assets, like things that like someone died or whatever, right? Like things that have been forgotten about. So right. I was in a pharmacy. They called me up and they said, do you want to buy this old pharmacy? I'm like, I'll come take a look. And I walked in, the guy's like, we're closing. Anything you want on the shelves, help yourself. And there was at the front left, like they are in many instances, there was a cooler full of frozen treats. And I pulled out about 10 or 12 frozen items that have been well past their best by date. And I brought them home over the weekend. I think I ate 9 Choco Tacos in like a 24-hour period.
You're a good man. You're a good man.
Hey, how did the metallic wrap work? Did it keep it nice and fresh? Were they still good?
I feel like this was an early iteration of the metallic wrap. It's been there a while. So we don't have a ton of time, Ian. Let's get rocking.
Yeah. So Alan, you started your career as a good humor truck driver. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so how long did you do that for? How long were you driving an ice cream truck?
I drove the truck for a couple summers in school, and then I was offered a management position with Good Humor, which is Unilever now. And I moved on and I worked for them as a manager for a couple of years. And then I was offered a better position with Jack and Jill Ice Cream also in Philadelphia. And I ended up, hanging on there for 46 years and doing a lot of fun things, including having invented the Choco Taco and done some other great stuff. So, it was really phenomenal. Something I really never planned on. Like that first day at Good Humor, when I got behind the wheel of an ice cream truck, I never thought I'd be 50 years in the ice cream business, but it turned out to be a great ride for me. I got to do a lot of fun, interesting things. The taco obviously was the pinnacle of all that, and nobody really ever expected it to be anything, and turned out to be, probably one of the 4 or 5 most iconic ice cream novelties in history.
So Ian and I were both born in the middle 70s, right? So like middle 80s, when we were in middle school or elementary school and middle school, like there was something mythic about the ice cream truck. Like I remember I was given like 50 cents, and on Friday, like you could go to the ice cream truck. Like one of the biggest mistakes I ever made in my life was on Friday. I had my 50 cents and I was allowed to buy whatever I wanted from the ice cream truck. And it was when New Coke was released. So I was like, I'm going to spend my 50 cents on a new Coke instead of getting an ice cream. I took 3 sips of it. I'm like, this was the dumbest decision I've ever made in my life. I should be eating an ice cream cone right now. And like Ian and I both have young kids. Like what was it about? Like, what makes the ice cream truck so special?
Well, I think a couple of things. First off, it only comes around, generally for, a short period of time during the summer months. So it's in the spring, it's sort of the bearer of good weather. So that's always exciting, when you're coming out of winter and you have, some nice weather. And now the ice cream truck really kind of reminds you of the changes in the climate. So I think that's a piece of it. And then obviously you're eating something that's really delicious, cold and sweet. And there's a positive reinforcement, in your brain from that. So it's, it's a combination of a few different things. And, hopefully the other thing that makes the ice cream truck, well, it did, and for a long time, very unique, is that we would have a selection. You talk about going into a drugstore. It was probably maybe a drugstore freezer might have a dozen different ice cream novelties back in the where the ice cream truck would have 40, 50, 60 choices. So the selection on the ice cream truck far exceeded what you could buy in a retail store. Now, I will tell you that fast forward to the modern day, mom takes a child into the supermarket. There's doors and doors and doors of ice cream and pretty much everything you find. But the ice cream truck still brings a special something, to the neighborhoods. And it's not what it was before. I mean, clearly that business, like everything else, has changed. Not to get off on a big tangent with it, but with children, adolescents being on devices frequently, and sadly not being outside playing as much, the ice cream truck has taken a hit because kids aren't in the street as much anymore. And it's kind of nobody ever thought anything like that would happen. We thought the ice cream trucks would be around forever and the business would be around forever, but nobody really could foresee what would happen with technology and devices, and how intense the passion of children and adolescents would be for those devices, and would take them away from being outside and getting exercise, which is really important. And then of course having that experience with the ice cream truck.
Millions of people have ideas for new products or services for their company. Very few bring it to their manager and pitch it, and even fewer are listened to as someone with advice. So was at the time, was Jack and Jill soliciting ideas for new products from employees in the company, or was this something you just brought to them?
No, they were not. It was the end of this ice cream season. It's probably in September. Things were slowing down a little bit. And I was just, kind of doing to be honest, a little analytical thinking about, we never had like our own unique ice cream. At the time, taco, Mexican food was probably the fastest growing segment of the food industry. And a taco is obviously the most recognizable shape. It just seemed like if you could figure it out how to make it, it would be something that would have legs. And, my boss at the time, Jay Schwartz, had, very good, positive attitude about things. And I pitched him on it, and he said, "Hey, it sounds good. Go ahead and run with it." We had a manufacturer that we worked with at the time called Gold Bond Ice Cream, which was acquired by Unilever, by Good Humor, after the fact. And I went out to them, and the reason that it was able to work and everything fit together is that Unilever, or actually, I'm sorry, Gold Bond Ice Cream, the owner, and besides having the ice cream plant in Green Bay, Wisconsin, also had a manufacturing plant where he made sugar cones right in the same town. So he was able to modify an international drumstick machine that made sugar cones, and he used for his own ice cream business and sold to other companies. He was able to modify that machine to make taco shells, package them up, and ship them across town to the ice cream plant where he engineered equipment to fill them.
So it's for someone listening to this, going right to your manager and pitching an idea, and I'm saying, go spend the money, prototype it. Was it that fast? First shot, you said, I've got an idea. Did you have some crude drawings you had drawn up, or did you say, let's make an ice cream taco? And he's like, get your ass to Wisconsin. That's brilliant. Like, how long did it take for you to get him to do this?
It actually was pretty much like the latter. I mean, basically, I pitched him on it. I was probably on a plane to Green Bay the following week. We tipped them off while I was coming, and they had a couple of their guys from the manufacturing facility, go to the cone plant, take some sugar cones off before they were twisted into a cone while they were still hot, and shape them into taco shells, and brought them over to show me, and we were off to the races. And really, we didn't have a huge investment. Most of the investment was on the side of, and our investment was on a trademark and a patent, but most of it was on the manufacturer, who basically made the equipment at the ice cream plant and the cone plant to make the sugar cone shells into a taco, and then very carefully in foam packaging ship them across town, because what gives a sugar cone its rigidity is that spiral shape. That gives it some strength, so you can stack them and ship them. Taco shell, not so much. It's until you put something in it, it's very fragile. So they were able to, basically, do a lot of work and basically ship the shells. And they still had a lot of breakage in the beginning, obviously, but through time we got it refined process. But they were able to ship the shells across town, and they engineered some equipment so they could put them in a line and fill them with ice cream, and it was amazing. And
How long did that prototype process go? How many different prototypes did you go through? How many, that kept breaking or couldn't stay crispy?
I'm not sure that I would say it was how many prototypes. It was basically, it was more the equipment and the technology and the equipment than, to make it. I know that in terms of the equipment, the machine that Unilever was just using, the one they stopped using, about 10 weeks ago, was the fifth, in my recollection, the fifth iteration of the machine. And frankly, it was amazing. I mean, the packaging was robotic. I mean, it was incredible.
So Jack and Jill spent some good money on tooling equipment before
Actually,
you even tested it, or?
Gold Bond Ice Cream did. So this was obviously in a day and time when, people, did things a little differently than they do today. If somebody had a good idea and they would run with it, they weren't, putting pencil to putting a pencil to paper and doing all the numbers. How much is it going to cost? They just say, hey, it's a great idea. Let's get the engineer. They had in-house engineers. Let's get them working on building out some equipment for this. I mean, it's honestly a miracle that everything happened. It fell in place the way it did, and turned out to be a big deal.
It feels like a series of miracles, right? Like Ian's working on a car alarm company. They're building a product. It's a tech startup in the 21st century. And there's so many false starts and there's all these different things. What it sounds like is you had an idea, you're on a plane. It's like, okay, we have to figure out packaging and kind of the shell. But were there many iterations of like what went into the ice cream itself? Like what went into the product, or did you guys nail that on the first run?
So my first concept was to make, at the time I was a big fan of vanilla fudge ice cream. And I felt like when you're eating something like the taco and you're biting into it with vanilla fudge, you're going to get the ice cream, the chocolate fudge, the chocolate on the outside of the shell, and the peanuts in the shell with every bite. So that was, my first concept. And that was what we ended up. And that ended up being the one that had the most legs over time. During the entire run of the taco, we made a strawberry. We made for Walmart a chocolate and a peanut butter exclusive for them, which they don't make anymore, but we did it. We had a toffee, which was phenomenal, and we had a mint. And the reason that none of those other flavors really stuck was a couple things. One, they at one point had two machines, but towards the end only had one huge machine to make the product. And to shut down the machine when it was running at capacity pretty much 24/7 takes a big cleanup. It takes the machine out of line for hours and hours, and it's very inefficient. So they did we've done some, when they had the two machines, it was a little easier, but when they had the one machine, very difficult to switch over to another flavor. The other thing is, as you know, getting space in supermarkets and convenience stores and dollar stores and drug stores is very challenging. So to get a second slot, we were never really able to get great penetration with the second flavor. The second flavor the toffee was probably the best. It had really good following, and got a lot of customer love when we discontinued it. But we were really, for efficiency, ashamed to say it, but for efficiency purposes, we're never able to really make a second flavor. consistently.
So you have a product. How do you start proving that there's a market for it? Where were your first sales coming from? How were you? You're also the sales and marketing guy. You're not just R&D.
Right. So first place, my background was ice cream trucks, and we're involved in an ice cream association, the International Association of Ice Cream Distributors and Vendors. I've been president for 4 years of that association, not currently. And so I have friends all over the country that I've met through that trade association. They're in the mobile vending business. So basically, I went to all my friends and said, look, we're coming out with this ice cream taco. You're gonna have to carry it. And when you have friends, and they're good friends, and it made sense, especially in California, which was an incredible market for us. So all my friends started selling it on ice cream trucks around the country, and it took off like crazy. And then it was a natural evolution to go from that into convenience stores and single what we would call single unit sales opportunities. Convenience stores, drugstores, dollar stores, gas stations, all those type of venues. And from there, it got really big, and then we just obviously the next evolution from that would be to go into supermarkets, which is a big step. And as over time, the Gold Bond company was purchased by Unilever, Good Humor. So Good Humor at that time had 30,000 freezers around the country in gas stations and drugstores and places like that. So when Unilever bought Gold Bond, the Choco Taco went into those 30,000 freezers. Well, today that 30,000 is about 120,000 freezers. So right away, that's huge. And then from there, we expand into other channels. Supermarkets, obviously a very big channel once we got into that. And probably our biggest market overall was the West Coast. California was huge, Arizona, Texas, places that are, not just because they're warmer, but I think just the taco rang, has had a special note with them because it was also, they're closer to Mexico, maybe, the taco, kind of hit home a little bit more, but those were definitely our stronger markets in the beginning.
So one of the things I'm really curious about, so like relationships matter, right? And tracking things in the old days, like I just pulled up my phone, like I can track everything on my phone in Salesforce, and I got a 50-person company. Like you can tell like if something's working or not nowadays with the metrics. So it's probably kind of like a gut feel. But what I'm really curious about is when did you know the moment was right to take it from the ice cream trucks to the taco stores? Because the famous story that we both found on the internet is you took it to Taco Bell, and that is an incredible sales story that Ian and I were both like, this is incredible. We got to talk to this guy. Like, this is incredible. Like, I really want to know, like, when you knew, and then who did you pitch, and what was that whole process like?
Yeah, that is kind of an amazing story. So at the time, Taco Bell was owned by PepsiCo. I think they still are. And the only thing you'll find in their drink is Pepsi products. And I reached out to Taco Bell, and they're like, huge company, very hard to penetrate. And they weren't really, they didn't sell any branded. Until to this day, it sold very little branded products in their stores. Almost everything is Taco Bell brand or Pepsi. So they kind of gave me the cold shoulder. So I did a little more research and found that about half their stores were independent franchisees. Unfortunately, I have a network of distributors around the country that could figure out how to get into that. So Taco Bell and its franchisees, have evolved into being sort of like rebels. They're not only like company men or company people. So Taco Bell had like an annual convention for all their company and independent franchisees. But the franchisees decided they want to splinter off and have their own trade show. So fortunately, again, very fortuitous that I found out about that, and was able to contact franchisees and say, listen, I'd like to take a booth out at your trade show. They were happy to have me. They said, we don't know if we can sell it, whatever, but bring it in. So we brought it in. We took a booth at their show. Obviously, the franchisees loved it, and since the company was against it, they probably loved it more because they're kind of rebels. And what we'd started doing is, going into what I would call the back door. I had a lot of my friends around the country. We made up point of sale material for the independent franchisees, shipped it out to them, supplied them with freezers for their stores, and my friends around the country started, supplying them with product, and it started taking off, and it got to be a really big deal. And I got a call one day from Big Shot at Pepsi, and he said, "Listen, I know you've been going in through the back door, and the product's, killing it. So listen, we want you to stop going through the back door. We're going to take it to the front door. We're going to go in all the Taco Bell stores that have enough space, and some of them are smaller stores and malls and stuff, but any store that's big enough, we're going to put a freezer in and we're going to take it to all the stores. And that was a game changer. It became like 20% of our volume, and it was a huge deal. And it was all because, again, a lot of just pieces fell into place. I found out that they had a franchisee network. I was able to penetrate that, and that caught fire with them, and it sort of forced it into the back door through Taco Bell corporate.
When you started selling at Taco Bell to that phone call from the bigwig at Pepsi, how long was that?
How long was the call?
The period between you start selling with the first non-franchised to you get a call from Pepsi. Was it weeks, months, years?
It was more than, I would say, between 6 months and a year.
I love that
trajectory is
story.
incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it took a little time from when you sell the first store and you start building, that distribution network and get equipment for them and point of sale materials. So, but fortunately, by the nature of franchisees, it was a recipe for success for everything that kind of clicked together.
So much of that is such a lesson, Frank, in business to business sales in general. A lot of new salespeople think I'm going to try to go to the executive suite as fast as I can. Like, the higher the level person I can talk to, the bigger the order I can get. And it almost never works that way, because typical senior executives are risk adverse. They're not going to do anything unless their team tells them they should. You went right to the end users, and which are the franchise folks. You say backdoor, but it's almost, you went right to the front door, the people that needed to make more money and grow their profits. And then you got them. They were all bragging so much about the money they were making that this executive had no choice but to call you back. And it's fascinating. I love it.
It is really just a multitude of these, little subplots, that added up to, the product being such a success.
And it's just hustle. You can make one call to the CFO and hope you get in, and that's easy. Or you can talk to hundreds of franchisees and go out and get your product out there. Just absolutely fascinating. What did you get involved, Alan? I'm curious on the intellectual property front, because there wasn't anything like this out there in all these trucks. Did you have to go protect this product so people didn't start copying it right away? I'm sure there's been hundreds of copies tried.
So what we did is, we hired a trademark and patent attorney firm, biggest firm in Philadelphia, and they did what they do. And we were fortunate. We were successful in locking up a trademark on the name and a patent on the shape. And the patent is considered a design patent, so it lasts 14 years from issue. It took between 2 and 3 years to issue. So we got 17 years on the design patent. After that, anybody can go out and make an ice cream taco, but nobody can make a Choco Taco.
Love it. I love it. So you're I'm going to go back to something Frank just asked. Was there a moment, a day of sales, a call? Was there a moment where you thought, oh man, this is a hit? You started with your friends that started putting it in their trucks, and you said it was starting to catch fire. Was there a day where, because as a startup owner, you're always second guessing yourself. What am I doing? Is anyone going to like this? Was there a day where you were like, holy, this is going to be really big?
Yes. So I'll tell you what that day was. I would get a monthly sales report from Gold Bond originally, and then when Unilever took it over. And there was a company that I actually did not know at the time, since become very good friends with, but it was called Wonder Ice Cream in Santa Clara, California, and they were a Unilever customer. And I'm looking at my sales report, and our company, Jack and Jill, which was our product, we were always selling the most of anybody. So let's say at that point, I looked at it in that year, we had bought like $300,000 of the product. We buy it like everybody else. I look at this Wonder Ice Cream, and they had bought $600,000. I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm like, and that was really if you have like an aha moment, that was it. When I realized it was, we had everybody pushing it. It was our product, and here I got somebody in California I don't even know, and they're buying twice as much as us, and that's when you kind of get the signal that this is a winner.
So I want to pivot into something slightly different. Much of this feels like a startup journey, like Ian and I have talked about, right? We both understand this incredibly well. We're also big readers of the Wall Street Journal. That's where we saw this picture. We saw the story break. It was like, holy crap, this is really happening. So in today's kind of environment, like the pandemic happens, there was everybody kind of entrenched and nobody wanted to quit their jobs. And since then, there's been the big resignation. And if you look at things like statistics, there's twice as many jobs available as there are people to fill them. And everybody has like an Etsy account and they're selling like scented candles. And they think like, this is my way of not having to work for the man, is I can go sell this stuff. So like what Ian and I are curious about, we both worked at big corporations and have left. Did you ever think about, what if I would do this on my own? What if I didn't have the support? Should I just try it? Is there anything along those lines that you kind of live? You're smiling, so I'm just going to shut up.
So I've been asked that question a million times. And in the case of the Choco Taco, and there are obviously tons and tons of opportunities like that for people to, to go out on their own. In my case, one, I was treated fairly, by the company, that I shared in the revenue stream. And, I needed all those connections and all the, the resources that I had from working there. Now, the question usually asks me, why didn't you come up with another one and do that on your own? And it's a similar story. Honestly, now I could probably do it because, they're saying they're not going to make it. I couldn't, do another Choco Taco. But again, as I mentioned earlier, anybody can make an ice cream taco. And I do have the resources, and I can't go into too much detail, but I can tell you that there might be a little something in the works, and more to come.
I love
Ian
it.
and I would love to be on. If you have testers, we would love to be testers. We've got lots of fat friends. We
will buy volume bulk too. We're happy with that.
Well, when I'm in the near future, there may be a press conference in Philadelphia. That'll be a party. And I will certainly make sure I let you guys know about it. And if one or both of you come down, I would love that. You'll have a ball.
Well, 100% do that. And as you explained it, Alan, I think it's a fascinating story. Your company really supported you. You had an idea. They didn't look down on you. They gave you a chance. So why would you have gone out on your own? And you're right. You put every one of your big company's resources to bear. You use the patent attorneys, you use their contract manufacturers, you use their network distribution.
Exactly.
There's so much you put to, if you'd have just said, I quit, I'm going to go start the Choco Taco, I don't think there is a Choco Taco, because you wouldn't have had all of that network to go lean on, which you needed to catch fire quickly.
Correct. Absolutely spot on.
Yeah. So what's it been like to see the outpouring of support, after the news came out with Unilever and so many people supporting it?
It's been beyond anybody's wildest expectation. Obviously very rewarding for me. I do hope the Choco Taco does come back. I do have serious doubt whether it will, but I hope that it does. I've never seen anything. And obviously it's only been the past, 10, 15, 20 years that, that the internet and the social media has really provided a platform for a public response like this. But there's never been in the ice cream channel any type of public outcrying and showing of love for a product that I've ever seen anything like this. I think it was, like you guys said, it was, I think number one or one of the top things on Twitter that day. It was in top 10, I think, in Yahoo and Google search. It was incredible. And honestly, now I'll randomly walk up to people just to see the reaction. I'll say, by the way, do you hear anything about that Choco Taco being discontinued? And I have not met one person that didn't say, yeah, I heard about that. That's crazy. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. What out of the whole 40 years of the Choco Taco, what's your coolest celebrity story that being the inventor of the Choco Taco got you to meet someone, or a moment where you're like, this is pretty cool?
There's been a fair amount, but we have a sports radio station in Philly, 94 WIP, and probably the thing I've had the most fun with is them having me on for their whole show a bunch of times, and kind of sitting in and wearing a pair of headphones and being part of the number one sports radio show in Philadelphia, and probably one of the top ones in the country. I know it's one of the top ones in the country, and so that was pretty amazing. Off the top of my head, I can't think. There's others. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Our biggest celebrity moment so far in this podcast has been having you on, Alan Drazen. This is absolutely your story is fascinating. I'm so inspired by the whole story. It's incredible.
Listen,
I want to ask you a little bit of a question, and I know you're catching a flight, so we'll go quick. So I'm 47 years old at this point, and I've been in business for my own for almost 15 years. And now I kind of tell myself a story of like, I've always been an entrepreneur. Like when I think about it, I was winning sales contests when I was like 7 years old. Anything I'd ever ended up like, that's just in me. Can you look back at your history and like, was this in you? Is this outside of the norm for you? Was this a chance? Like, what was it?
So I would say, honestly, in the beginning of this journey, I was kind of an introverted guy. And somewhere along the line, this lit something up in me and turned me into the opposite. And when you believe in something and you kind of take it, inside, it's kind of incredible what it
Kind of
does.
fuels you.
It does, and it made me driven, and I wasn't driven before, and it made me uber focused on the mission. Not looking. I was still a relatively young guy then, so but it changed who I was. It really did, and it still continues to do that today. And listen, but I want to say one thing because I do got to run, guys. I'm happy to come back on after that press conference. I'll try and give you guys the first shot at it, and we could talk about what's going to happen going forward.
We would love that, man. And I trace all this back to that one manager who believed in you. I think that's pretty cool. That story you told about, you remember his name and he gave you a shot and it brought something out in you that you didn't even know you had. I think that's really cool.
It's amazing stuff.
You find the right job, you never work a day in your life. And it sounds like with the smile on your face, it doesn't seem like you have. We really thank you for your time.
Have a good time in Panama, Alan. Thanks for coming
guys.
on. We would love to have you back on. That'd be fascinating.
I'll be back, and the message will be awesome, and we'll have a great time.
Thank you, Alan.
Great to meet you. Thanks.
Same here. Thanks. Bye.
If you are new to Let Me Speak to a Manager podcast, we speak about all things careers. We talk about starting new companies. We talk about building your career, how to make more money in your career, how to grow in your career, how to invest, all things that can make you wealthier and happier with your work. If you are new here, we would love it if you would hit that subscribe button. And if you're one of our longtime listeners and you have not given us a 5-star review with some nice comments wherever you consume podcasts, please do so.